You've tried the sticker charts, you've tried the consequences, you have tried explaining yourself calmly and logically to your child over and over and over again, and the defiance is still there. That's because most parents are trying to fix behavior when the real issue is actually the system that's producing it. Defiance is not a personality trait. It is not a phase, and it's absolutely not a sign that there's something wrong with your child. Defiance is learned behavior. And if it's learned, the great news is that it can also be unlearned. In this video, I want to explain exactly why kids stop listening using a core psychological framework called social learning theory. Once you understand this, behavior just starts to make a whole lot more sense. And more importantly, you actually know where to intervene and what to do. So let's start with the foundation. Social learning theory tells us that kids don't primarily learn behavior from what we tell them. They learn behavior by watching patterns and observing outcomes. Kids are professional observers. They are like tiny little scientists constantly tracking things like, what happens when I resist? What happens if another child escalates? What happens if I push just a little bit longer or a little bit harder? Here is the key. Kids observe others, learn from experiences, and they repeat what works. If a child learns that escalation leads to a parent backing down, delaying, negotiating, giving in, that behavior doesn't feel defiant to the child. It actually feels really effective. That's the mirror effect in parenting. Kids mirror the emotional intensity, strategies, and outcomes they experience and observe, not the rules that we explain. So when parents come to me and say, my child knows better, what's often actually happening is that the child has learned a system where not listening produces really effective results. To understand how that learning happens, we need to break behavior down into 4 psychological processes. Every repeated behavior passes through these 4 steps. The first is attention. For a behavior to be learned, it obviously has to be noticed. Kids pay attention to things like tone, facial expressions, urgency, emotional intensity, and energy shifts. Even negative attention still signals that a behavior is important. If behavior reliably pulls your focus, the brain flags it as relevant. The second process is retention. Kids don't remember lectures. They don't remember explanations. They remember how the interaction ended. Did the demand go away? Did you soften? Did the situation end a little bit quicker? That outcome is what actually gets stored. The third process is reproduction. If a behavior worked before, the child will try it again, not to challenge you and not to be difficult, but to confirm reliability. This is why behavior often escalates or repeats. It's not defiance, it's data collection. The child is checking whether the strategy still works or not. The fourth and most important process is motivation. Motivation answers one simple question: was this behavior worth it? If defiance results in getting what they want, delaying something they don't want, or pulling you into some big emotional reaction, then the behavior is reinforced, and reinforced behavior gets repeated. When parents are stuck in chronic defiance, it's almost always because this motivation piece is unintentionally being strengthened. This leads directly into what psychologists call the coercive cycle. Here's what that cycle usually looks like. First of all, a parent gives some sort of direction or command. The child resists, the parent repeats or escalates, and then the child escalates even more. Eventually, the parent gives in, maybe completely, maybe partially, maybe just to get through that particular moment. But in that moment, both people experience relief and are reinforced for their actions. The parent gets peace, the child gets power, and both people learn. The parent learns that giving in ends the chaos. The child learns that intensity changes outcomes. That is how defiance becomes stronger over time. Not because the child's getting worse, but because the system is teaching that escalation is a really effective, successful strategy. So how do you interrupt this? The answer is very simple, but it's not easy. To change behavior, you actually have to change the model. And that starts with 3 principles. First, your own regulation. This always comes first. You cannot teach calm while you're dysregulated. Kids learn emotion regulation by observing it, not by being told to do it. Your nervous system sets the tone for the entire parent-child interaction. Second, remove the reward. If a behavior has historically worked, it's going to continue. That means no negotiating under pressure and no rewarding or giving into escalation. If a child screams for something, that thing becomes unavailable in that moment, not as punishment, but as system correction. The behavior has to stop working. Third, model the standard. Leadership is calm. It is predictable. It is consistent. It does not rely on intensity or emotional energy. Consistency is what rewires the behavior over time. Here's the reframe that I want you to leave with. Defiance is not a flaw in your child. It is feedback from the system, and systems can absolutely be changed. When you understand why behavior exists, you stop reacting to it and you start responding to it and leading through it. Defiance is learned, which means cooperation can be learned too. And it starts with the standard you model starting today.